employees. We offer customer development opportunities, visibility through events, magazine ads, podcasts, TV show, and money-saving discounts on stuff you're probably already paying for, like payroll, healthcare, 401k solution, and 24/7 HR support. If you like this presentation, keep your eyes peeled for a special quarterly leadership series coming in March, featuring our very own Cal Thomas and Casey Carpenter, who many of you might know. I'm Katie Whitcamp, and if you're interested in more info on NJBIA, I'll drop the website into the chat along with my contact info. Please feel free to be in touch and we can get you whatever you need. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel.
Hello. Thank you, Katie. So it is a snow day. My kids are home and I am terrified at what you guys are about to see here. I just hope everybody has their clothes on. It's really all I can ask for, but I'm excited to be here today. So as I mentioned, my name is Rachel Durkin. My company is Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web branding, marketing, and workflow agency specializing in working with clients with a complex sale. So if you have a sale that requires a sales team to have a conversation to close a deal, and your sales team wants to increase the number of meetings they're having and shorten their sales cycle, we can make a big impact in your company. So reach out to us. Okay, we're still here banging, but I think we're okay. I want to take a second to thank our sponsors today. So first we have Cal Thomas at Sandler Training. Sandler Training does management, customer service, and sales training. I have my entire team as part of their development process and promotion requirements go through Sandler training. I can't brag about this enough. I highly encourage anybody who has a sales team or who is a sales manager to consider Sandler training for their team or for themselves. When I took Sandler, my closing rate went from 40% to 70% in a matter of 8 weeks, and I am not exaggerating. Our second sponsor is Kim Luthi who is the director of wealth planning and is celebrating her 35th year as a financial advisor in 2023. Happy birthday, Kim. I know from speaking with Kim and seeing her in action, she's a valuable resource to her clients, and she's been advocating inspiring action and helping clients live the life of their dream for decades. We are excited to partner with Kim to bring you this program. She's a lifelong student of excellence, growth, and she has a very thorough process when working with her clients and helps them find clarity to gain the results that they want. I want to thank Kim for her continued sponsorship. She is from Synthesis Wealth Planning. I don't know if I said that in the beginning, and she has been a big supporter of this roundtable for a very long time. So thank you, Kim. We couldn't do this without you. And then lastly, I want to thank Laura Crothers from Crothers Consulting. Crothers Consulting is a 12-year-old company that helps leaders gain clarity around people, leadership, and culture issues. The team provides a creative and unique perspective to HR that is vital to understanding the nuances and of how to create high growth in an organization and build leaders within a company. Leaders rely on the Crothers team to help their HR as their sounding board and serve as their leadership coach to develop their management skills and their management team, because we all know that we cannot scale without others to support us along the way and help our other managers grow. So thank you, Laura, for your continued support, and we could not do this without you either. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Donna to talk about our next upcoming event and a little bit more about what's happening today.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies. So I am Donna Miller, founder of C3 Workplace and Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting. For nearly 30 years, hard to believe, we've been helping companies to start and grow. We do that by providing support and advisory services around operations, business development, and bookkeeping. We allow growing teams and business owners to work smarter by focusing on that which truly drives their business forward. You know, working on your business instead of in your business quite so much. And our clients come to us because they know that by bringing us in to build efficient, connected, and executable systems, they are laying the foundation for building a company that can run and grow without them involved in the day-to-day. Those of you who follow me know, first of all, I'll shut my phone off. Second of all, I'm often working from a beach. In fact, Friday, I leave for Florida for a couple of weeks. So if building a self-scaling company is something you're interested in, let's talk. I know my team can help. So that's a little bit about me. First of all, housekeeping. We are recording this event. We almost weren't recording this event, if you caught that. So we are recording this event. I want to encourage you to use the chat window to do some virtual networking and to introduce yourself and to engage with your fellow attendees here. And we will have time at the end of the presentation for Q&A, which will be led by the fabulous Vicky Hott. But we are going to ask you to use the Q&A portion because the chat just gets out of control when we have crowds this big. So that is a little bit about our housekeeping. Next month, I am super excited. We are going to be talking about something that's really near and dear to me and something that I help my clients to do, which is building a culture of getting everyone in your organization selling, right? And sometimes it's selling, sometimes it's identifying opportunities or pain. Sometimes it's creating such an amazing customer experience that people can't help but spread the word. And we are delighted to welcome my friend, Dan Genghis, the experience maker, back to the table. And Dan, Rachel, and I will talk about what goes into creating a culture that gets everyone selling and how to reward and cultivate that over time. And when I'm not doing 14 things, I will drop the link in the chat so you can register right away, but you don't want to miss that one. So we talked about it's a snow day, right? So our guest today is Cassidy Nasello, and she is talking about sales and marketing and bridging the gap between those two. Now, talk about bridging gap. It's snowing in the Northeast, and Cassidy lives in Woodstock, New York, and Cassidy has no power. So, because we are proactive, and this is how I run my company, Cassidy and I pre-recorded the content yesterday, and so I am about to play you the presentation that Cassidy and I did yesterday on this topic, and then we'll engage with you in the chat. I'm going to ask some questions, and then, like I said, at the end, we will have time for Q&A. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share this presentation. Rachel, Katie, Vicky, you can all take a seat in the back of the room, whatever we call that on Zoom, and let me share my screen, and we will get this party started. Now, you're all looking at my blank screen. Somebody give me some love in the chat. Tell me I'm good. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to hit play. If you can't hear it, let me know, but I think we'll be good. All right, we will be in the chat window. Hold on one second. Hello, everyone. I am so delighted to welcome Cassidy Nasello. Did I get that right, Cassidy?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. I was so nervous about that. See? Okay. So,
That's the hard bit.
delighted to welcome Cassidy to the roundtable. Cassidy and I have known each other for quite some time. Cassidy had a very successful corporate career. You got to visit her website right now. I'm going to drop the address in the chat window so you can visit it. But she had a super successful corporate career working with large media companies, you know, The Atlantic, Condé Nast, Wanderlust, and she was charged with creating dynamic relationships between sales and marketing so that they could hit the goals they needed to hit, right? And we know that that's important to all of us. So as we are preparing presentations for this roundtable, I thought we really need to get Cassidy to come and share this message with us. And I want you to know that not only did Cassidy have an incredibly successful corporate career, she left and she went entrepreneurial. Woo-hoo, you know how much I love that, right? So, but the truth is, these same challenges present themselves anywhere, right? And Cassidy, in addition to having this amazing corporate career, is certified in something that's called positive intelligence, which creates incredible mental fitness. That's really the core of what we're going to be talking about here. But Cassidy's going to present it in a way where you can see how getting teams aligned, and we're going to be talking about sales and marketing, but in reality, this is for any team. You know, it could be the old finance and sales, you know, challenge, but it's getting people aligned to achieve a common goal.
And this is something we've been talking about a lot at the roundtable, whether it's culture, whether it's getting everyone selling. So join me in giving a warm welcome to Cassidy. Cassidy, I'm going to turn my video off and let you take it away, and I will be with you here the whole time. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Donna, and thanks for everyone for tuning in. I know we all can have Zoom fatigue. I'm here to make this worth your time. You know, as someone who's been in the corporate environment and needed to really bridge the gap between sales and marketing, I decided to come back to my old industry world and bring in the coaching tools and techniques that I use with teams and with individuals and leaders to help them identify what the challenges are and how to break through that beyond just strategy. So as we know, when a company grows, its needs change, and more revenue, yay, or more funding for that matter, can mean more hires, which means more individuals have to let go of the tasks that they once handled. And it also means that recognizing higher goals and shifting priorities is needed to meet these new objectives. So the marketer and seller might have been one person when the company was, 10 people or 5 people or less even. And then all of a sudden there is a marketer and a seller, and they probably work really closely together and collaborate. And then the company grows, and then there's actually maybe 2 marketers and 3 sellers. And then now you have 2 different departments. And with those departments come different cultural stereotypes or general personality types may be coming with that, because different skill sets are needed. You want to optimize these new hires. And we don't work in a vacuum. So if we were just thinking about the bottom line, it would be, okay, here's the org chart that supports the structure that we're looking for, and this is where the money's going to go, which classically favors sales, but not always. But here's the thing, it's not all about bottom line and org charts, because we are in the business of humans. And with our humanness comes our human mess. And so while this starts off as a strategic question, egos come into play, desires to control come into play, just challenges with change. There are steadfast thoughts about what's right. And that can jam up the best of business strategies. So today is not about me telling you what's the best org for your marketing and sales initiatives. So who am I to tell you what to do? I don't know anything about your company. But what I am here to help you with is how to navigate that human side of these business related questions to help for smoother transitions, grow creativity, and have a genuinely positive impact, hopefully, on your productivity. These roles are not just cogs in a business wheel. These roles are people who want to be seen, heard, valued, and have impact on the company. So understanding this human side of the org chart is critical for success. So I hope you can get a lot of tips out of today. I'm going to go through a 5-step process to help you smooth out these transitions and figure out what you're really solving for and how to best optimize every person within your organization. So whether you have a small company or a large company, and even frankly, as Donna said, if it's not necessarily about sales or marketing, these techniques can be used to bridge any gap. And frankly, you could even take this in your home, maybe bridge the gap with your partner, though I would take out all the sales jargon and look at that very well, and trying to deal with conflict at home. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into what are simple slides. I don't want to just inundate you with facts, but it is always nice to see where we're starting from. Only 8% of companies believe they have strong alignment between the sales and marketing teams. And these are stats from Harvard Business Review. That's pretty low. So what does that mean is being left on the table? So I think one variable of this is such high turnover typically with sales. How can you have a unified team when the sales department is so volatile? And that's its own webinar on how to stabilize the sales team. But it's just worth noting that instability, of course, makes for hard team integration. The good news is when they do work together effectively, it's very clear that the revenue impacts are awesome, 32% higher, and retaining 36% more customers because there's consistent touch points. And the win rate, of course, goes up. As well as the sales cycles will shorten, right? When these two departments are working well together, the market entry costs go down and the cost of sales is lower. I think you can all think about the impact when this machine is running smoothly and well oiled. Of course, productivity and sales will go up. So what are we solving for? Well, I'm guessing there's some element of conflict or challenge that brought you to this webinar today that made this webinar feel relevant. But to get really clear about what you're solving for is an overlooked step, because usually, oh, this is the issue we're having, comes with a whole slew of assumptions and perhaps a myopic view. So here are some strategic questions to help you drill down to what you're solving for. What is the problem we're trying to solve? As simple as a question that is to actually write this down and get aligned cross-departmentally amongst the leaders, of course, of the company on what are we solving for? And what is this challenge that we're solving for costing us? What's the impact on the people of our organization and the economics of our organization? How do we think this is the best problem to solve or the right problem to focus on? I'm sure there's more than one. So is this the one that you want to commit your time and energy to solve? One way to help you answer that question is, well, if we fix it, what changes? What becomes different? And then if we decide to fix that problem that we've agreed upon, what are we choosing not to solve? What are we actually letting go of? And that's important to be very intentional about that so that you can remain focused on the challenge at hand. And if we do this plan to solve this problem, like reorg and decide to integrate sales and marketing, for example, what's that impact look like? What's the headcount change? Is there redundancy? So really playing out the impact and understanding the ripple effect of solving for what we've decided X equals. Org structure, operations, and stakeholders are the three key components to consider that will face the impact. So once you have those strategic questions answered, take a pulse check. What's the current state of your marketing and sales department? Or to Donna's point earlier, your finance and sales department. This again is translated across all departments, but we're going to focus on sales marketing because that's where I've seen a lot of friction in my time in the media world. Is it undefined willy-nilly, like one person is doing it all? Is it defined where you have a clear swim lanes? Who's doing marketing and who's out there in the sales space? Perhaps it's aligned, or perhaps it's integrated. So aligned is agreed on the goals, but doing very clearly separate things. And the swim lanes still exist, and maybe there are some touch points in overlap. And integrated is truly co-creating, much more forward thinking, and sensitive to what's happening out in the market. And this typically happens at larger companies where there's an integrated sales and marketing team. Before the problem solving begins, since you've taken that assessment of, we go back to the beginning, what are we solving for and what's the current state of our marketing and sales departments, that's the pulse check. Before the problem solving begins and you get into the human side of the challenges that you're facing, it's really important to create psychological safety. Too often I've witnessed people coming into these problem solving strategy offsites, not willing or feeling able to share their opinions, or when they do, they're not feeling heard. So building a social agreement or a social contract where everyone feels like they can be heard and seen is critical and very often an overlooked step. So how do you do that? Well, let's go back to the why of the company. What is the company's mission? And then what are our collective goals and values as a team that supports that mission, and then take it down to the personal level. What's my stake in this? What are my personal values that align with my team's values, that align with the company's values? And seeing where the overlap is between any team, sales and marketing, right? And where those values and mission can be aligned. So getting really clear, this is a whole day of workshopping with teams just to get to this alignment. But it is worth it, because once everyone is clear about how their values support their team's values, support the company's values and mission, then everyone is in lockstep moving forward together. Johnson & Johnson's been doing this for over 75 years. If you Google Johnson & Johnson Credo, you'll read a lot about it. They are really focused on making sure that their mission and their values aren't just inscribed on the wall, which they are a very nice marble slab, but are actually instilled into the company culture. And they create a space where you can challenge anyone within the organization safely if they're not upholding one of the values, and it's called a credo challenge. So, for example, I don't think, Donna, I'm making this up, but I'm sure you would uphold this value, that you are not upholding the inclusivity value. And so I'd like to challenge you in this. And I can do that without worry, because it's coming from a good place, from good intentions, which have been agreed upon in our shared mission and values. And if you're my boss or the CEO, I should feel safe to do that. So creating this credo of, 10, you want to be able to memorize it to a degree, 10 shared values that we collectively decide to challenge each other on and uphold. Or if you're deciding on a new marketing initiative, does this uphold our credo of sustainability? Right. So this is really the anchor for everyone to come back to, or the compass, I should say, the company compass for us to look towards to make sure that we're all staying aligned. So what is your company credo, and how does your team and company values support that credo? How can you make that mission a living and breathing compass that you can consistently turn to stay aligned? So that's understanding the company, the mission, the values, the problem that you're trying to solve. But we are all individuals living and breathing within this company structure. So we have to know what our role is in all of this, right? And the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So know thyself. And this is where that element of mental fitness comes into play. So let's say I'm a seller and I'm having conflict with a marketer. Let's say I'm high drive on success, and my marketer is very detail oriented and wants to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Well, understanding that about myself, and that I can kind of get fixated on success over perfection, and that my marketer is maybe more focused on perfection, less so on success as in the sale. Well, that's friction right there, right? So knowing myself can really help me be more empathetic, a word that's used a lot, but I don't think embodied, always empathetic towards my marketing partner. So how do we know ourselves? Well, there's a lot of different assessments that can help you understand yourself. DISC is one of them, Myers-Briggs. Positive intelligence, which Donna mentioned, is a tool that I really like to use. And this helps you understand how we self-sabotage. And of the 9 identified saboteurs that we all have, we're all born with them, which ones kind of trip us up the most? So when you look at this diagram of the 9 different saboteurs, of course, there's the judge, which is like the mafia boss of them all. That's the voice that wakes you up at night and tells you that you're an idiot because you forgot to send that email again, or you forgot to write that memo, or you didn't issue this on the invoice, whatever. that's the judge, but the judge has 9 different minions. We all have all of them. And if you snap a picture of this QR code and we'll also link to it as well, I can send you this assessment so you can see which of these 9 saboteurs ring the loudest in your mind. So I'll use myself as an example. I come out very high on hyperachiever. So I am constantly moving my goalposts. Just because I hit my sales goal doesn't mean I hit my actual goals. So no time to celebrate because the competitor will just fly by me. So I'm going to keep gunning for the next sale. I also ring high on restless. So I'm going to dig 1,000 holes and hope I hit water, but probably not. So I've got a lot of irons in the fire, throw another cliche at you, which can be a lot to keep up with me. And I also have a strong controller, meaning, I'm not going to delegate this to you because it's just better if I do it myself. So can you imagine if I'm a top seller or leading sales and I'm letting these saboteurs dictate the way I run the sales department? Can you imagine how fun it would be to be working with me and to those who I hire, who I think are like me? That would make for a challenging partnership with marketing, who, might care more about the thoughtful details of a proposal, for example. So again, I hope this exemplifies why it's really important to know yourself and your role and how you bring these traits into your job, and how they might not only affect your own productivity, creativity, and joy, dare I say, at work, but how that might impact that of your colleagues. So I love to take this assessment within the whole team where everyone tells on themselves and shares their results of this positive intelligence assessment. And the psychological safety has to be there, though. It's not a tattletaling thing, because the beauty is it's like the common denominator. We all have all of them. Let's just see how our saboteurs interact with each other in a meeting, how the controller might impact your avoider. And I'm wondering why you're not participating in the meeting, because maybe you have a strong avoider. So this plays out in team dynamics and can really thwart creativity is critical. And it's really an awesome eye opener. But as we know, awareness isn't enough. Okay, great. You have a strong controller. I have a strong avoider. That doesn't make for a fun meeting. Now, well, it's important to know how to shift out of that hijacked, self-sabotaging state. And to first understand, this is a brain thing. This has to do with the geography of the brain. Most of those self-sabotaging thoughts and feelings and behaviors are coming from the left brain. And just to touch on the neuroscience, we want to get ourselves into that I'm in the zone state, which lives more in that right brain. And that's that sage state where we are curious and we are empathetic and we are innovative and we are inclusive and we are leading with our wiser self and our experience. And we are fearless when we do commit to action. And the short of this, which is its own workshop, the short of this work though is recognizing when you're hijacked, like, oh, I am in a triggered state and I am hell bent on controlling this meeting, right? And that means I'm in a saboteur state. We know what it feels like to be in a sage state. We've all been there before, where things feel effortless, time flows very quickly. You're feeling open and creative. You have kind of this spirit of yes, and what else could be possible? This childlike curiosity. And if we could get teams to be in that state and work together in that state, there are no limitations to what's possible. We have to take a breath and pull over to get to that state. And that's recognizing that we're in it and literally taking a breath, getting up, walking around, and collectively understanding as a team that we want to have a meeting that is not controlled by our saboteurs. I even give to my teams a sign to put in their meeting rooms. If they're Zoom, then they're behind them. Check your saboteurs at the door. Because they're not helpful. We think they're helpful. We think we need to lead with that hyperachiever, or else we will be blown by the competition. But the truth is the strengths that lie underneath your saboteurs are the ones that will sustain your success. So if I have a strong hyperachiever, I am innately goal-oriented and success-oriented. I don't need the stressful thoughts or feelings to push me harder because I'm going to work hard no matter what. So recognizing that is also really helpful. So sage thinking, when you do take that breath and pull over as an individual and ideally as a team, is first, let me just understand where Sally's coming from in this meeting. Let me empathize with her that she's got a strong avoider and she might be a little bit shy about sharing her opinion. So let's write our brainstorming thoughts down and share them anonymously. Maybe we'll hear from Sally in a way that we wouldn't have otherwise. So thinking of creative ways to include people, empathizing with yourself, it's a challenging time, the market is challenging, this is tough, we're all doing our best. So just taking a breath for yourself helps as well. And then when it's time to assess a challenge as a team, be it what's the best word chart for sales and marketing or whatever we're trying to solve, what's the best go-to-market strategy, get curious, really get curious, because we tend to exclude a lot of options when we are, of course, leading with assumptions. So turn over every possibility like a child would a shell on a beach. That yes and culture really means that every idea has some validity. So a fun way to play this out is for someone to come up with a ridiculous idea intentionally, and you have to use a seed of their idea to create your next idea. So pretend like you're making a company mascot, and I think the company mascot should be an elephant, and of course that's silly. Why should I have an elephant? Like maybe, but then maybe wisdom comes up. So maybe there is something behind that we can play with. So assuming that everyone's idea has 10% of something good and beautiful to work with and building on that idea. So often we say, yeah, but, or no, but, and we know that yes, but means no, and you're shutting down creativity right away. So creating that culture of yes and is very critical. Navigating with wisdom, we tend to just forget the past, not want to rehash or revisit. And we're letting go of wisdom when we're not seeing what worked and what didn't work. And part of that is because we can't necessarily look at past mistakes with blameless discernment. We tend to look back with shame, guilt, doubt, and all those uncomfortable and pleasant feelings. But if we could look back on mistakes that we've made as a company, decisions that maybe weren't the best or served us the best, then maybe we can use that wisdom forward. So again, those words, blameless discernment is really critical. And then we're using our experience to inform our next move. And then and only then can we really activate with fearless focus. The underbelly of this, though, is there is no wrong decision in anything, in life and in the company. Yes, are some decisions more favorable for more favorable outcomes than others? Of course. But what we need to understand is that every decision we make, all that does is it gives us data that informs us if we need to change that decision, pivot that decision, overhaul that decision, or continue to go with that decision. It's just data feedback we're getting. And yes, in a world of business and bottom lines, when there are stakeholders involved, we may have to move quickly in those pivots. But again, it's feedback when we make a decision so that we know if we're on the path that is the optimal path or not. So trusting in that can help us move through decisions with that fearless focus, because we can stay nimble and know and be accepting, again, with that psychological safety, like, oh, this didn't really play out the way we wanted, time to pivot, time to come together again and pivot. So these are the 5 elements of sage thinking. This way of thinking in business is not possible if we're coming to the room with all of those nasty saboteurs that we saw on the last slide. So really important to know that you're coming to this space with this open mind and you're ready to proceed with this sage approach of problem solving. Clearing the air. Well, sometimes we have stories and assumptions that are hanging over from the past with us. And so it's important to clear the air to be able to break through and really create a new way of approaching problems and a new culture within your company. So what are the stereotypes that you're all thinking about as you look at the sales and marketing gap? I won't read all of these, but it is fun to look at these and think, well, that's totally sales. Only sales would say that. And that's definitely marketing. Marketing would be the only person that would say this. Well, that if you're so quick to assign a marketer or a salesperson to these quotes, well, then you too are living in the land of assumptions. So for example, I'm not a deck machine. Who might say that? I think I would probably answer that with the marketer who's creating the decks, of course, but think about the impact and how they feel with what they're trying to generate quickly enough for you to take things out the door for the sales team, right? Or another example is I don't trust my counterparts to execute in time. Maybe that's for the restless, hyperachieving salesperson who doesn't have the patience to wait for marketing to generate the materials needed to go to market. And so when you bring these back forward that you saw earlier, because I saw this happen in last year, as someone who had to get a deck out to a client as a seller, and I'm waiting on marketing, and you know, I feel like if I don't get this deck to my client by tonight, I'm going to lose the opportunity. So you know what? I'm gonna tap into my controller or my hyperachiever saboteur, and I'm just gonna grab that deck and I'm gonna make the changes that I want to make, and I'm gonna send it out the door. And what's the impact of that? Well, I probably just demoralize my marketing partner for one, and that doesn't make for an easy partnership. Two is maybe it triggers their avoider, because if they're thinking, well, Cassie's gonna take this deck and run anytime, every time anyway, so forget it. I'm just gonna head back in the sand and just avoid the pain of that. And then I might have overpromised something that the team can't deliver on, or I cut into the budget, the bottom line, because I expanded on the offering without necessarily expanding on the price because I wanted to get the deal done. So that is all saboteur-driven behavior, right? And that is not a genuine partnership between sales and marketing. If the saboteurs and the pressures that fuel them are driving the decision, right? And they also create all these limiting beliefs, right? The limiting beliefs of the seller who says, I can't build a client relationship over Zoom, like this is impossible. And you know, the marketer that's wondering, you know, why we can't generate more leads. So underneath all of these challenges are the limiting beliefs generated by our saboteurs. And that is where it's really important to have that psychological safety, to have that empathy, have that alignment with the team, so that we can speak openly about these limiting beliefs and move past them. So we must smash these stereotypes, right? The stereotypes of marketing, being out of touch with what the clients need, setting the prices too high, maybe being too slow, focusing so much on creativity, and having that sense of I'm here to serve sales, right? That's often a common dynamic, and being very analytical. And the classic stereotype of sales, steamrolling a marketing team, being, you know, having unrealistic expectation and not valuing their marketing partners, being out of touch with the bigger market, focused on the short sale, not the long game, and just more focused on the relationship with the clients over the relationship with the marketing partner. Now, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm not saying like these aren't the feelings and you just have to, you know, obliterate them and they'll disappear. But what can we do to move past this? And that's getting clear. How does the marketing team really feel? How does my marketing partner really feel? And what are their expectations? And the same for the sales team. That's how you move past those stereotypes to bridge the gap. This is a great way to move past those stereotypes. It's called the clearing model. I did not create it, but it's a fantastic process. And I love a good process where everyone can just point to the steps. And even if it feels somewhat robotic and awkward and clunky to work through a problem as a team with these steps, it eventually becomes quite natural and something that everyone can lean into. So let's start with the facts. What's the budget that we're working with to deliver something to the client? That's a fact. And let's say it was a $50,000 budget for added value. And let's say I felt like that wasn't enough money, so I decided to add in more offerings because I didn't feel like that was going to get it done. So separating the facts from the feelings and my story that I make up, right? I make up that you, marketer, again, don't get it. And I know what my client needs. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and change the offering. And that makes me feel empowered. And I lack trust in what you think my client needs. But my role to own in this is that I am under a lot of pressure by the CFO to deliver this sale. And I acknowledge that does make me a little bit more hijacked by my hyperachiever and maybe not a great partner to you. So I'll acknowledge my role in that and my expectations that this is where we play back our versions of this story and get clear. My expectations are that I'm offering a competitive product to my client, and I didn't feel like it was competitive enough, which is why I changed the offering. But my expectations is that we can get a market analysis in place that we can all get aligned on what is a healthy budget for what we can bring to the client and get aligned on. So this clearing model, you take this home and use this with your child or your partner and try it out. But recognizing the facts, the non-negotiable facts, the story that you create from those facts, the feelings tied to that story, what you're willing to take ownership for, and then a reset of expectations can help both individuals and teams move past any conflict in the workplace as well. Donna, do you have questions about this clearing model? I want to make sure from someone else, and chime in if you're not clear. I want to make sure if this feels clear.
It does. I think that it's the type of exercise that you probably would benefit from some guidance in going through it the first or second time. And as I've listened to your presentation, when you wrap up and before we go to Q&A, I have a few questions, but I love the fact that you're giving us a process to look at it. And I think that especially in this world of sales and marketing, where we have goals and even quotas that we have to hit, it's probably somewhat counterintuitive for our people to take a pause and really assess the facts, the story, my feelings, my role, my expectations. But I think it's the only way to get to a place where you can start fresh with solutions that have the greatest possible probability for collaborative success. So yes, I get it. I think it's something that people should consider getting some guidance initially.
Yeah, I agree. Trying this on your own is challenging. Especially when a lot of feelings are involved and there could be confusion around those feelings. A great example is just how much funding how much money goes to hiring for marketing and hiring for sales. It tends to shift towards sales. And so that may create all these feelings that marketing has. So if the fact is that the sales department has, 5 people and marketing has 1 person to support those 5 people, that's a fact. And that marketer might have a story about that fact, but their role is, and they're not as valued, right? And they're supposed to support 5 people, right? And what feelings does it create for that sole marketer? And what's their role in it? And what's their expectations that they want to be clear about what they can and can't do, given how lopsided that might feel to them. So that's another example of how that clearing model could work. Having an objective facilitator certainly helps, and it's something that I've taken teams through to help them define them, get clear on them, and move past them. And that brings me to the last solution, which is really a summary of everything that we've talked about. It's creating this growth mindset culture, right? This, again, people are not cogs in a wheel. We're humans, and as you might know, newer generations care about growth and personal development. So how can you really bring that into a culture? How can you integrate that into every single meeting? Not just, you know, the occasional company offsite where you rah-rah about how great the company is and the mission and values, but then nothing is said about it beyond that. So integrating that, you know, obviously that changes company to company and how you do that, but there are great ways to do that, so that you create this set of standards and best practices, which is a coaching mindset within your company culture. So beyond awareness, you have to really practice this, which is why I like to have a dumbbell there. Think about this as going to the gym. Developing this mental fitness within the company requires habit and practice. Make sure whatever the problem is, be it you're solving for bridging the gap between sales and marketing or any other challenge within the organization, what are we solving for? And I took you through those steps on what that looks like, how to get to X. Creating that psychological safety so that when it's time to get clear on what the possible solutions are, people feel safe to express their thoughts and they know that they're going to be heard. In fact, not only their thoughts going to be heard, but you're going to build on those thoughts with that yes and me. Owning your role in it, right? Human mess, right? Humanness is human mess. Know your role in the mess and in the drama. Empathize with yourself, of course, and with others, so that you can move past it as an individual and as a team. Clear the air with this clearing model that helps you move from fact to solution, and then create this and co-create this with your colleagues, with your leadership, on what it means to have this growth mindset culture. Does it mean that we're all acknowledging each other's saboteurs within a meeting and saying, you know what, my controller is a little active right now. I'm having trouble delegating this. This is what I need to feel comfortable letting go of this. It's like a very organic way of integrating that language, that lexicon, whatever your tool might be, if it's insights or just integrating those tools into the language of the meetings so that you can challenge each other to grow, pointing to that credo that we talked about earlier that Johnson does. And I don't think that this marketing issue, for example, upholds our credo of creating a sustainable offering to our customers, right? Again, that's integrating that into the culture and challenging each other to uphold that mission and values. I hope that is a clear and helpful approach to bridging that gap, to solving problems together, and even considering how you might just grow yourself with these steps as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Cassidy. So as I think about, and before we go to Q&A, as I think about everything you've presented, and you know, I have a little bit of inside info because we've worked together and I've gone through the whole mental fitness training, which is phenomenal. Something you just said really struck me, and you talked about the language of meetings. And I'd love to hear from everyone in the chat, but it seems to me that post-COVID, obviously so very many things changed. And I think that this alignment and this updated language of meetings has become even more important. We have these remote workforces that, you know, I mean, working remotely is great, but I think it does feed the disconnect because we're not in the same room. We're not overseeing or overhearing what other people are going through. So I wonder, Cassidy, in your work with your clients, how much this can help to bridge that divide of our remote workforces. So it's not just departments. I wonder if it's just workforces in general that we are updating this language of meetings. And even what I think I see, and this is the part I'd love to hear from the audience, is it's almost like culturally, corporate-wide, there is a greater amount of vulnerability in meetings. I think we're getting more real in how we interact with each other. I don't know if that's COVID. I don't know if that's younger generations. I don't know if it's what's being demanded, but I think this conversation that you're having today in the language of meetings and bringing our real selves into those meetings, saboteurs and all, and being aware, is becoming more and more prevalent. Is that what you're seeing as well, Cassidy?
Yeah, absolutely. And the challenge with that, there's a good and a bad. The good is we're being real and we're more unfiltered. The challenge is that what do you do with that realness if you haven't experienced it before and how to manage that? There's no water cooler to kind of chat it out at. So if you're in this isolated, 20-minute meeting and someone's landing hot with their controller saboteur, but without a language or a tool to work through that creates friction, right? And space, because you're also back to back in these virtual meetings, there's no space to necessarily connect one-on-one or work through that or want to. And so it's even more critical to create this open coaching kind of culture and conversation. So I'll give you an example of where I just saw this last week. My client said that her team came really unprepared to present their research to the marketing team. And she was really disappointed, and she went ahead and emailed them that she didn't appreciate how the meeting went, and it looked like last minute and unprepared, and the new GM was there. And so she said she set up a meeting with her team to basically wag her finger at them. And so I asked her, well, how do you think that's going to go? So how can we create an opportunity from what feels like a letdown? And so the solution then becomes for them to co-create best practices around what it looks like to present data to the marketing team. And then have everyone on her team decide what are the most important components to share, what order should they be shared in, what are we leaving out? And that is now a template that they're going to use in all of their future presentations to the marketing team to see if they should go to market with the product that they're creating. So that's that growth mindset coaching culture. But again, they need the language to understand saboteurs were involved, which ones. They need the psychological safety to be able to have the conversation about it. They need to own their role in it. They need the ability to clear the air so they can move past that and be creative and productive together.
Absolutely. Excellent. I don't want to take up too much of your time with my questions. So with that, let's go to Q&A.
Thank you. Please.
Okay. So thank you, Cassidy. And Cassidy is actually with us on audio from, I think, a gas station somewhere near her house where she shoveled her driveway to get out so she could answer a few questions. So Vicki, I'm going to hand the Q&A session to you.
Well, that certainly is a nod to excellence, Cassidy. So thank you so much. I'm sorry we're not seeing you, but I don't know what I would do without my marketing team. And so many of these things we talk about, there's these adversarial relationships. So first of all, I say everybody play nicely with your marketing people, because if they're great, like my team is, they're going to keep your lead funnels filled. But with that being said, there's a lot of generational differences. And I noticed this in a lot of the comments that were sent in earlier. And as you're building, I think there's 5 generations in the workplace now. And so many things of what you talked about, Cassidy, were about alignment and bringing everybody, essentially getting everybody in the boat and rowing in the same direction. Is there advice that you would recommend while you're hiring? The new sales force today, there's definitely generational differences, whether it's the new marketing team or the new sales force. We could have different age gaps. Are there things that you would look out for, or things that you would recommend while you're doing hiring, during the hiring process?
Great question. I coach a lot of people in managing up, and a lot of executives in the C-suite managing different habits, managing down. Really getting clear on your expectations as a leader is number one, and being very clear with your team about when you expect them to work, what deliverables look like, best practices, as I mentioned earlier, but also being open to understanding how the people below you want to work. So for example, how did they want to communicate? What works best for them? And co-creating a process and a methodology that serves both parties. But it all comes down to expectations, because when expectations aren't communicated and then not met, that's where problems arise.
Those old expectations, setting up, I guess, Cal, this is a page out of your book, the upfront contract would be setting those expectations. Yeah, my next question would be, and this is a very interesting one because I've been in organizations like this where sales and marketing used to be in the same role, and then they split and they separated, and now they have two different agendas. One is about positioning the product or the service, and the other one is the brand evangelist. Sometimes playing nicely together can be a bit of a challenge. I'm sure this all comes back to, having the same core values and alignment, but is there anything that you could offer when the organization was one and now it's growing? Because companies on a growth trajectory experience a lot of movement very quickly.
To seek the gift and the opportunity and the change. Change is uncomfortable for everybody. As much as we've had to adapt with enormous change over the last couple of years, people get comfortable in their roles. And so when they have to try something new on or give something up, that can be unsettling. So understanding what's the gift in this expansion, what new opportunities does this bring to the table? What new learning skills can you develop? And then again, always keeping that common goal front and center so that you all understand what you're collectively working towards. And then also maybe acknowledging what might be hard to let go of, and taking a moment for some empathy there. I used to do this task and I really enjoyed it. And so if I'm now managing that task out, that might be hard for me to let go. But acknowledging that up front, and again, just keeping everyone on task towards a shared goal.
I bet keeping, as a salesperson myself, I know we can be a bit of have a shiny object syndrome. So I can definitely relate. Which brings me to my next question. And if anybody else has any questions, please make sure that you drop it in Q&A. But oftentimes marketing is tasked with putting together programs and tools for their sales team to utilize. And sometimes, I'm not saying this is me, but sometimes the salespeople are tough to adoption, and it makes the marketing team perhaps maybe not feel as successful as they should be if their tools and their processes are not being honored. Is there anything that you'd like to add, or again, some insights about this?
I'd be curious if the marketing team are, best of intentions. We always have to assume good intentions, right? But if they are creating those tools in a vacuum, or how they've decided what the necessary tools are, to Cal's earlier point, at what point can they be integrated, those two teams, earlier in the game to decide what's most effective, what are they lacking to take into the marketplace, so that, marketing isn't working in a vacuum and then sales doesn't have the opportunity to say, this isn't what we wanted, because they had some insight, at least at a leadership level, what was being created earlier in the game.
Awesome. Cassidy, thank you so much for getting through the objections that life threw your way today, and for making it to the gas station. to
Absolutely. I'd be on camera if I wasn't drenched in sweat from shoveling and
snow
gear.
Shoveling never does any favors for your hair. We all know what that is. So
Kelly, you got your workout credits in for today.
That's true.
I did.
So thank you, Cassidy. If anybody has additional questions, you're welcome to email me, email Donna, and we will forward those over to Cassidy. I'm sure she'll be happy to respond to any questions you have via email. So thank you all. We're coming right up on time. And oh, look at that. It just hit 1 o'clock. We are so punctual. So do not miss the roundtable in April next month, where we're going to be talking about building a culture of sales. Cassidy, thank you again so much for being here. And thank you so much, everybody who attended. We couldn't do this without you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Cassidy.
Bye-bye now.